All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us. This is Bob with simplex-it here, and just wanted to welcome you all to our first of 3 webinars that we decided to do in the month of March, really to give people an introduction to Office 365. And we're going to get started. We're going to take about 30 minutes. Okay, so what we're going to do is, first of all, if you have any questions, please use the texting. And just put in your message or whatever your questions are, and we'll try to handle that as we go. This is a very informal, so this is not going to be a lot of fancy stuff. So if you have questions, go for it. Now, you're going to see a series of presentation slides, and you can kind of guess which ones are done by Microsoft. So, anywho, okay, reason we're doing this, and I'll show you, go through our NASCAR stuff real quickly. simplex-it, for those of you who don't know, we've been around since 2007. We are managed service providers, meaning that we want to handle all the IT for the small, medium organizations or work with the existing IT departments to make them stronger, better, faster. We've been a Microsoft partner through and through. We actually bought into, I'm just going to go through this stuff real quickly. We bought into the Office 365 early on, prior to it even being Office 365. It was actually called BPOS. Thank you, Microsoft, because we really needed to have a really catchy title for that. I'm just going to go past this. So we actually were with Office 365 before it was called Office 365. We worked with about 100 companies, moving them to BPOS, to 365, and working with existing IT departments or doing it entirely on our own, any combination therein. Now, if you've been with us at all through our, whether it be through support or any of our luncheonars, our webinars, you know we give it straight. So this is not a sales pitch. We think it's a great product. We also think there are issues with it, and there are challenges with it. And we'll bring up some of those, but it's a great product, and most of the challenges and most of the limitations can be either minimized or entirely avoided if you know them up front. And that's part of what we'll talk about as well. This is not going to go terribly technically deep dive. But this will give you an idea of hopefully what 365 is, because Microsoft, in their infinite wisdom, has really kind of mucked up how they refer to it and how people think of it. So here's our actual schedule of presentations we've got this month. It's a pretty full calendar, as you can see. The 3 events are March 3rd, 9th, and 15th. March 9th, which I believe is next Tuesday, I think, is going to be our second webinar, and that's going to be on the licensing of Office 365, because there's literally about 40 or 50 different types of collection of Office 365 components, and I'm probably minimizing that. And then finally on March 15th, we're actually going to be at the Microsoft Store in Beechwood. We will also be broadcasting it live as in this, and we're going to be talking about implementing Office 365. Those 2 are actually, if you're really interested in looking under the hood in terms of adopting Office 365, those 2 are actually in some ways more important than this one. But all good stuff. In addition to that, we have our normal webinars. Patty will be doing both of those on OneNote 2016. That'll be a week from today, actually. And then on the 17th, our project management webinar, which primarily deals with one of the components of Office 365, Project Online, which is essentially a cloud-based version of Project Server on completing projects. And then on March 24th, I'll actually be speaking at the IITP group on bridging the gap between business and IT, talking about how IT people have to become more businessy and business folks need to become more IT-y-ish. Well, whatever. I think that one we're actually going to broadcast live as well. Stay tuned to our blog and you'll see what's going on with that. Okay. Simplex-it.com, simplex-it.com/blog. We will put up the presentation on this once we're done. We also have the Twitter handle. If you registered, we'll email you the PDF for this presentation as well as the YouTube link. If you don't see that, email Patty over Patty at simplex-it.com if you don't see it. Okay, enough. Now let's talk about 365. If you're familiar at all with Office 365, this is going to seem a little bit, why are we talking about this now? But in the conversations we've had with companies, there's a lot of confusion as to exactly where 365 is, and a lot of people think it's just email. A lot of other people think that it is just in the cloud, whatever. The problem is that it is a lot of things, and depending upon the flavor that you purchase, it's a little bit different. So it's not just the cloud. You actually have components that are on your computer. When we talk about getting Office, the Word, Excel, PowerPoint, most commonly people get the version of Office that you actually install on your computer, which is also known as on-premise, as part of the Office 365. Office 365 is a subscription service. You're going to pay a monthly fee. When you stop paying, you no longer technically own the licenses. So it's a beginning and ending kind of thing. If you stop paying, you stop using it, but you also automatically are entitled to all updates. So when a new version of Office comes out, you can automatically update to that, should you so choose. You don't have to, but you can. When they upgrade some of their background stuff, such as the Exchange servers or the like, and we'll get into this a little bit, that happens automatically. Now, in some cases, you need to be careful about that if you've got services or applications that are dependent upon older stuff, and we'll talk about that as we go through. The maintenance of the core products is performed by Microsoft. So right now, most companies had an Exchange server or some device that was actually processing email on your premise, and you would have to keep that puppy going. You would have to make sure the hard drives were good, the server was okay, the backups were good. All of that core maintenance is now performed by Microsoft through Office 365. There are also dozens of flavors of 365, with Office, without Office, with email, without email, business intelligence, project management, Visio, all of those kind of things. And Office Professional versus Office Standard, Office with remote desktop, without, so on and so forth. One of the biggest challenges that you need to do is you need to have a conversation with somebody. Hey, that could be us, who actually knows the licensing up front. You can get through this very quickly. It ain't complicated if you're talking to somebody who knows. If you don't, then you're going to be guessing on your own, and you may be going after the wrong subscription, which essentially is going to be a pain in the tuchus. You're either paying too much for stuff you don't need, or you're paying not enough, but you didn't get the stuff that you did need. And there are several ways to purchase the license. Thank you, Microsoft. We can't just have one way to do it. Let's have 12. This is the first of the slides that was not done by me. You'll notice that all these people are happy. They're having happy, good lives. Most commonly, when a company looks to switch over to Office 365, the reason that discussion starts is because we want to move our email to the cloud. It's the most common thing. Okay. That is referred to as really Exchange Online, which is a component of Office 365. That is, when you talk about migrating email, you're talking about that. Now, the nice thing with 365 is that it includes mailboxes of 50 gig. Okay? So every subscription license to Office 365, and by the way, whenever I say every or always, the odds are there is one little exception, and this is true here. We're not going to go into those, but just keep that in the back of your mind. So when we talk about we want to upgrade our email, and we're looking for both a feature and a budgeting standpoint, this is really what we're looking at. We're looking at our current Exchange server versus going to Exchange Online. Exchange Online very simply includes email. So any email that is sent to your organization goes through Office 365 and then is distributed however your email is distributed to the end recipients. So that includes automatically web and mobile device access. So you can set up your iPhone, your Android phone, your Windows phone. That one person who has one still. Um, you can go to the web. If you already own Outlook, you can use Outlook to access your email. And it's a fully synchronized. So you can share mailboxes, you can share calendars, you can share contacts, you can do all that good fun stuff. And that's automatically included. It also includes the spam filtering. And I want to be clear, the spam filtering, which used to be known as Forefront, it's okay. Now we have, like I said, we've got about 100 or so clients that we've either moved it and or I think 90 of them we still are representing them in some form of, we're doing some of the maintenance and all that. And none of them, to the best of my knowledge, have added an additional spam filter front end. So the spam filtering has been sufficient. But when you look at from a Barracuda or Sophos' Reflection, they're, in our opinion, stronger spam filters. So if spam filtering is a huge issue for you, then you may want to consider including that service on the front end. So you can add it if you need to, but you don't need to. Like I said, most companies don't need it, but keep that in mind. So we also include 50 gig mailboxes. Each user gets 50 gig. Now, usually, especially if you've got the on-premise, usually most people have maybe 5 gig tops, 10 gig tops. I think we've seen a couple that have had 20, but this gives you 50 gig mailbox. And there are ways to increase that, okay, but you want to be careful on that. And we'll talk about that as we move on. The cost is $4 a month per mailbox. So if you have 20 mailboxes, 20 users, 20 times 4, $80 a month, boom, your budgeting's done. You now know what your licensing is for your Office 365. And then specialty items. And the specialty items would be things that are they're associated with email, but not associated with a specific user. So examples would be additional domains, if you used to be known as an older domain. Shared mailboxes. We're going to send an email. We want a mailbox that's called customer service, that 3 or 4 users access. Well, those 3 or 4 users, they need their own mailboxes, but the shared mailbox isn't going to cost you anymore. You can have as many of those as you want, aliases, groups, mail-enabled contacts, room calendars, all of which, if you're using Exchange, you're used to those and what those can bring. All of those are included. You can have as many as you want. There's no additional cost for that. And you manage this through a combination of a website, basically a portal site, as well as there are apps that you can now download onto your mobile devices, as well as you can use Microsoft's PowerShell. Okay, so you still, or we, as your IT support, still have the responsibility for maintaining the users and the customers and what they have and all of these features, but the server that lies underneath them, and actually it's servers, that's all Microsoft's responsibility. Okay. Now there are enhanced versions of this, and we'll get into this in a few minutes. But that's the gist of that's your Exchange migration. So let's compare that, an on-prem versus a cloud. And I was talking with a potential 365 where they were looking to consolidate about 150 mailboxes. And their question was, gee, why pay a monthly subscription as opposed to just buying the server and being done with it? Well, if you look on the left, here are all the expenses that you're going to get with an on-prem Exchange server. You're going to have the server, and in some cases you want multiple servers. I'm not going to build this up artificially. You then need the Windows Server license. You need the Exchange software. You need client access license for each mailbox. Now you need to back up your server because Microsoft backs up their server. You need to make sure you're backing up yours. You still need the spam filter. Someone has to do maintenance on both the server and Exchange and user configuration and management. In the case of 365, you have a monthly subscription. You have the user maintenance for configuration and maintenance, and possibly a bigger internet pipe. And I want you to pay attention to that one because that is a drawback if you're not prepared for it for 365. Now, I want to be very clear here. We support several customers who still have on-premise Exchange boxes. And quite honestly, if you approach us, and I told this to the potential customer, from a financial standpoint, I would really prefer you get the on-premise because I will make more money off of you. Okay, so from a greedy capitalist standpoint, yay, on-premise. But from a business process standpoint, it just doesn't make sense to do that on-premise. That's even with 150 users. Okay. And by the way, feel free, type in, text in with any questions that you have. So then the next component of Office 365 is how do you get your Office? How do you get your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and all that? Now, there are two versions of this, and it gets confusing in some cases if we don't pay attention. There is what's called the web version, and then there's the on-premise version. The web version is kind of like the Google Docs. It's a copy, or it's a version of Word, Excel, of PowerPoint that is web-based. Now, that can only work on files that are stored in the web, in the cloud. So it's going to be a little bit on the limited side. To be clear, we don't have any clients at this point who are purely cloud-based in terms of their Office software. All right? The online stuff is good. The web version of Office is okay. But the on-premise version is significantly more powerful. Plus, it gives you the ability to work on any file that you have access to. Local, network shares, all of that kind of fun stuff. So there's really two versions of the software. For all purposes of our conversation, we're talking about the on-prem. The stuff that if you went to Best Buy and bought a copy of Office, if you still can, that would be what is running on your computer. And if you didn't have an internet connection, you'd still be able to run it. The on-premise version. 365 gives you a way to license the Office for the user, for that subscriber. One of the neat things on this is that unlike any other Microsoft license, this actually gives the subscriber up to 5 uses of Office. So if you're using a 365 subscription, and let's say that you're going with the Microsoft, the 365 Business Essentials. And the Business Essentials pretty much gets you everything except Microsoft Access and remote desktop usage. There's a few other limitations, but those two. Hold on a second. Okay, I just got a note from somebody. Are you able to see our screen right now? I just got a note from somebody saying that they can't see the screen. Can somebody type in whether the screen is okay or not?
I can see it, Bob.
Okay, we've got a few people. For the person who is not able to see the screen, if you can go ahead and exit the meeting and then go back in, sometimes that'll work. Okay, but thanks for calling it to our attention, because like everything else, sometimes the stuff. Sometimes computer stuff doesn't work. I know. I'm sorry if I'm breaking some news to some people, but I know it's rough. So in any case, so for Office, for Business Essentials, the Business Essentials for $12.50 a month actually gives that user the ability to install Office on up to 5 devices. So if you're like me and you don't have a life, you've got your laptop, you've got your tablet, you've got a computer at home, you've got your mobile device, you can actually install with that one subscription on up to 5. And the web version does not count as one of the 5 licenses, because the web version can be used on any. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, thanks for the question. I don't feel as alone now. So it's a great way, especially when you talk about people who are doing the BYOD, or if you have folks that do a lot of work from home. This really gets you. Now, I want to be clear. Those 5 licenses are for that user. So it's those devices related to that individual. Okay? But it is a great way to handle multiple device situations, which we are all in, and we're just going to get more and more so. And you've got the Mac version of Office, you've got the Android version of Office, you've got the iPad version of Office, you've got the Windows version of Office. So Microsoft is no longer the Wintel platform. So this is one of the strengths that people don't realize, But it's a strength that people have to realize their company has to be in a position to take advantage of that. So if you've got road warriors, if you've got people who are going back and forth, all that kind of fun stuff, this is really cool. Okay. So I'm going to move. Now we have a guy. Absolutely, Brian, you can mix and match. Yep. You basically have 5 licenses. So you can mix and match Mac, Windows. I mean, that's the whole idea, really. Because you have people who, and I'll admit, this is hard for me to say. I switched to an Android phone last week. I don't know what got into me, but it happened. No, I dropped my Windows phone finally and switched over to an Android, and I just installed the Office components on the Android phone. And the same thing would be true. I think I've got an iPad at home, and I've got Office installed on the Office components installed on that. So yeah, it absolutely one of the biggest changes with Microsoft over the past year or so is they're doing it for survival. And I think it's a great move. They are moving away from we're Wintel only. So, but yeah, no, I've got an Android phone. Actually, it's pretty cool. So. Now when we're talking about combining, and this is one of the things that Microsoft is doing very well, is they're combining the tools that are both on-prem, your Office stuff, as well as the cloud, as far as the cloud stuff for you individually and the cloud in terms of collaboratively within your organization and beyond your organization. And this is where if you are looking to bring more collaboration between you and within your organization or you and customers, vendors, whomever, there's actually some really cool stuff that you can do here. So, for example, we've got 14 people here who are joining us through Skype for Business. Okay, very simple to put in play, very simple to work with. We'll go through this real quick. So we've got OneDrive for Business. OneDrive for Business is essentially Dropbox on steroids. It is a centrally, somewhat managed, controlled for individual file synchronization. So if you work, Brian, in your example, I've got a Mac, I've got a Windows, and I've got an Android. It will synchronize the files automatically as I just go ahead and change them. Yep. Yeah, Patty, who is marketing manager and also heads up the project management, she also has a Mac, and we're okay with that. Pretty much. So the OneDrive for Business, the users get up to 1 terabyte of space allocated to each of them individually. Now, this is where we prove that we are not just kowtowing to Microsoft. First of all, there's 2 versions of OneDrive. There's OneDrive and OneDrive for Biz. OneDrive is the personal version. That's the one that comes with every Windows. You can sign up for it, all that kind of fun stuff. It's not the same. So I actually have 2 OneDrives on my desktop. I have OneDrive and OneDrive for Business. Wow, that can't be confusing. Here's the problem. OneDrive, the synchronization tool, is actually based on Microsoft Groove, which comes back from Windows Vista days. It is not the most bulletproof and strongest tool in the shed. It works reasonably well, but if the end user isn't paying attention to it, it doesn't report failures terribly well. So if a device stops synchronizing or has an error synchronizing, the icon changes. It may come up with an alert, but it's hard for an external resource to really see that there's a problem. Also, if you do a lot of file synchronization, like I'm going to stuff 1,000 files into my OneDrive for Business right out of the gate and synchronize it, it doesn't handle it well. So it's good. There are better tools out there. There's a new version in beta that I was using a couple months ago, and it seems better, but still it's one of those where it's good but not great. Now, if it was horrible, we would tell you this. We would say right out of the gate, don't use it, stay away. We're not saying that, but you need to be careful. This is not a replacement for file shares. And we can get into that a whole lot of different ways, but there's some companies who will just call us and say, hey, we've got our server 2003. We want to throw that out and just go to OneDrive. You can't, because they're different tools, they're different mindsets, different security schemes, all of that kind of fun stuff. So bit of a limitation on that. Okay. Here's a guy who I'm assuming is watching a cat video. I don't know. But he's talking about Skype for Business. And again, we're using Skype for Business right now. Skype for Business is really, in my opinion, one of the unsung heroes. The most common comparison you get is it's a corporate go-to-meeting, but it's more than that. All I had to do in order to get, and let me just show you over here. So in my Outlook, all I had to do to create a Skype meeting, such as what we're doing right now, is just, oops, is just say new Skype meeting. And if I say new Skype meeting, it automatically creates the links and it creates the phone number, all that kind of thing. And all I have to do is send it to people, which is essentially how you guys got the invitations. We cut and pasted and distributed the emails differently, but that's all we had to do to put our meeting together. And it ends up on everybody's calendar and life is good. But beyond that, what we can do within our organization and this is, we're going to have to hurry. This is essentially a list of all the simplex-it employees. It shows me whether they're online, they're available, they're busy because of their Outlook schedule. Patty's in a conference call. I happen to know it's this call. But I can immediately just text them, do a video meeting, do a collaboration meeting, all of that kind of fun stuff. It's easy to record these. We're just recording this using Skype, and then I'm just going to go in, cut the beginning and ends off, and push it up to YouTube. Boom, done. Really good. They've recently added the phones for audio. They've also added support for large-scale meetings. It used to be that the limit was like 350. It's significantly larger. That's included with 365, and we're going to have to move pretty quickly because we've got a lot more stuff to cover. And by the way, keep the questions coming if you got them. SharePoint Online. Again, now you have two people who are just enthralled by it, so it's got to be good. SharePoint Online is, for all purposes, it is a way to create an online neighborhood, whether it be through just file sharing. You can also do workflows. There's a number of things you can do. There are limits on SharePoint Online in terms of the number of files. It's not a huge number, so again, you're not replacing for file shares. But this is the one component of Office 365 that needs the highest amount of configuration. Just about everything else has a relatively low amount of configuration when you're looking to implement it. This is more of a framework for you to do things. And again, whether it be workflow, whether it be some of the BI stuff, whatever, it's great. But not a replacement for file shares. Yammer. Okay. Yammer is Facebook for organizations. It's the only way I've found to say it. And it actually, the screen here is a good example of how it works, where you have one person who is on the West Coast who just says, hey, I see this, and someone else who works in a different area sees something similar and can communicate. This is not for smaller organizations. I don't see the benefit for that, but it is a nice way of creating that cross-departmental environment. But it's something that it's a framework. You're going to have to work to make it usable. You're going to have, remember with them, what's in it for me? NIMBY, not in my backyard. Whenever you add something new to an organization, you've got to justify it in order for people to use it. So Yammer's cool, and actually Microsoft is by far and away the best organization I've ever seen using it. They have some really cool Yammer pages that are much more up to date and much more dynamic than their web pages are in terms of what Microsoft's doing from a partner standpoint. So, and by the way, it looks like we're going to go about 3 minutes over. I apologize for that. You'll get an email with the link to this once this is up online. A big issue here with 365 is collaboration. And collaboration, you can do this. So you've got these tools. You've got the Office. You've got the Office on the web version of Office. You've got the storage. You can share files both within your organization and outside of your organization. You can use files together so you can have multiple people looking at the file. If I wanted to, I could put a Word document up here at this Skype for Business, and we can all see. That's one of the things I like to do when I'm having a group of us going over a contract or going over a proposal, is I'll put the screen up, or for whatever. If I'm taking notes, I take the notes out in a way that people could see what I'm typing in. So if someone says, no, we need more detail, or that's not it, at the end of the meeting, there's no surprises. Everybody saw what I was typing in and how we were doing it. So that works nicely. So a lot of ways to go through that. And again, I can't stress this enough. These are not web or all web pieces. These are all devices that have native applications written to both keep the interface so it's something you're relatively used to, but maximize the interface so it works best for that product. And this is something that, especially if you look at Google Docs or any of the other guys, they can't do that because they're all web-based. So this stuff works online or offline. If you're in Amish mode or you're in an airplane and you've synchronized the data, you can go ahead and work on stuff, and then when you're back online, boom, automatically synchronizes. So great opportunities to do this. And yep, same look and feel. And I don't know what's going on with this person because she's not looking at the computer. I don't get it. A couple of other things that I wanted to talk about real briefly, and then we'll wrap up, is there are a bunch of ancillary products that can be had either in addition to or completely, on their own in 365. You have the BI products, the business intelligence, which essentially gives the subscribers access to the BI tools, and then they still connect to the local SQL, so it's not cloud-based, but they can use the tools, and there's a decent amount of support from that on that one. Same thing with Visio. If you're looking to do charting or the like, you can subscribe, use Office 365 to subscribe to Visio. Project. I can't say enough about this. If you have project managers and you're looking to implement a project methodology throughout your organization, if you looked at Project Server, you were looking at 15 grand just to get started between server, software, and all that. That had nothing to do with configuration or anything like that. Office 365, you have Project Online, which is, I think, 40 or 50 bucks a month, as well as the clients for the people who are doing the tasks on the projects are like $7 a month. And it's all the server stuff is already done. So that's, and honestly, I wish we were better at communicating what that did to customers, because there's a huge opportunity to really implement some good project management practices. And Patty is heading up that process, and we'd love to talk to you if you're interested in that. And then security. Depending upon the license you get for Office 365, items such as encryption, such as blocking certain types of information is in there. So you don't have to add additional features. If you have the Microsoft E3, which is the Office Professional, you get remote desktop capability, it also has built in the encryption for email. So you've got that as well. And this head talks about the encryption. Now let's talk about the Achilles heel, and then we're going to wrap up. The Achilles heel, first of all, keep in mind that this is over the web. So you've got more traffic. Usually, a company has a server at their local office, and you're communicating to the other people at your office, and you're doing 1,000 megabits per second. So that transmission is going relatively fast. The communication to the cloud is 1 to 15 megabits per second, depending upon the pipe and the speed. And that's everything you do over the internet is going through that pipe. Well, suddenly, instead of email is going to your server, but then it's going to everybody locally over these really, really fast highways. Now with the cloud, everything is being sent through the cloud. So if you send an email in your office to everybody in your office, and let's just say there's 50 people, that's 50 emails that are going through this local server network It's not that big a deal. Now let's make it so it's you send an email from you up to the cloud, and then 50 of them come back down. And if they have large attachments, now you've got 50 times that traffic, and it's on a much smaller pipe than what's going on locally. Now, is that horrible? Well, it depends. How many emails do you send to multiple people within your organization that have large attachments? And how busy is your pipe currently? If you're in a different situation where you have a lot of remote users, it actually works the opposite. It's better for you. Because in that case, you send to your 50 remote users, it goes from your workstation to the server, and then 50 emails get uploaded. Whereas with the cloud, I send it from the workstation to the cloud, and then the 50 emails go out and you never see them. So it has no impact on your plumbing. But that's one of the things that you need to take into account. And for the most part, it's fairly simple. And if you don't know how well your internet pipe is currently as far as how much usage, you need to have a better idea on that. Achilles heel number 2, older stuff. Older stuff usually means less secure. And if you have like old applications to send emails or third parties that are sending emails from you, such as Constant Contact or some of the portals, or if you have a website that automatically sends emails to clients based on what they say, or devices, time clocks, scanners, the older they are, the more likely they can't handle the security requirements. Okay? Now, this is not a Microsoft got all funky. This is it requires secure connections. The older stuff didn't, whether it be your older server or the older devices. Okay? Usually ways to get around them, but we need to know about them and you need to review those ahead of time. Achilles heel number 3, and this is the fun one. If you are in an organization that doesn't like paying a monthly, okay, you'd rather pay a capital cost up front and then never upgrade it. You're going to abuse it and you're going to run it into the ground for the next 10 years. There is I'll call it cultural, but it's really a fiscal change in approach that 365 requires. So we're literally talking to customers who have Exchange 2003 and who are still trying to get rid of their XP desktops. I'll be honest, manufacturing, okay? Actually, and nonprofits, those would be the two. And that's fine, and you've done well, you've survived, all that kind of fun stuff. But the idea of you can do that again, I'm going to buy the 2016 product and never have to upgrade for the next. The business changes too fast, security changes too fast, all of that stuff. Remember that we went from 2003, Exchange 2003 to Exchange 2007 and Server 2008. So we went 4 years and 5 years for the OS, the operating system, the servers to upgrade. Yeah. Yeah, Brian, I mean, it's one of those where we've all been there, okay? And it's worked. That's the problem. It's worked. The challenge is that, keep in mind, Microsoft has changed their tune. Since 2008, they have upgraded the operating systems of desktops and servers every 2 years. And they're going to continue doing that from a licensing standpoint and from a function and feature standpoint. So you're going to fall behind faster, not more slowly. Similarly, the applications such as Office, Exchange, they're doing those every 3 years. So there is no longer going to be this, hey, well, nothing's been updated. So you need to understand that. And if as an organization you still decide to keep the stuff forever, hey, no harm, everything's good. But recognize that that's an issue. Okay, went through things really, really quickly, and I apologize. We're running a few minutes over. So here's what's going to happen. Next, we have part 2, and I think that's from 11 to 11:30, or no, it's from 2 to 2:30. Patty, keep me honest. It's part 2, and that's where we're going to talk about the licensing. And we're going to approach it both from a standpoint of what features do you want in terms of licensing for Office 365. Cool, 2 to 2:30. not only what features, but then how do you want to pay for it? Do you want to pay for it monthly? Do you want to pay for it annually? Do you want to lock in rates? Do you want to be able to change your numbers? All of that kind of fun stuff. By the way, I did not mention you can mix and match the licensing. Not only can you mix and match what version of Office you install, if you want to have, like, let's say you have 20 licenses, but 15 of the people already have a version of Office. So you get 5 licenses of 365 that include Office and 15 that don't, and you can switch depending upon which type of licensing model you use. You can switch as people either need it or don't need it moving forward. So we'll talk about that. Also, if you have any specific questions, email bob@simplex-it.com. Happy to talk to you about this. Again, you guys know us. And hopefully this is showing you we're not here to sell you. We're here to educate you so you can make better decisions based on what you've got and what you need. All right, guys and gals, see you later. Thank you very much.